Hey everyone, welcome back. Another deep dive today.
Good to be here.
Last time we got into how your body, senses touch, pain, temperature, even body position. All those mechanoreceptors, thermoreceptors. Fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. Understanding those basic sensory inputs is key.
Totally. So today we're shifting focus a bit. We're diving into the chemical senses, smell and taste.
Ah, yes, olfaction and gustation.
Right. And these are often called the special senses, yeah, because the receptors are really specific, kind of localized.
Exactly. Highly specialized receptors in distinct locations, unlike, say, touch receptors spread all over your skin. And the big thing connecting them is they both use chemoreceptors.
Chemoreceptors, so detecting molecules.
Precisely. Molecules that have dissolved, usually in fluid like mucus or saliva.
Okay. And for this dive, we're drawing from Mr. Hostler's lecture notes.
That's right. Based on Chapter 13 of The Human Body in Health and Illness, 7th edition, his notes really lay out the anatomy and function very clearly, especially how they connect.
Great. Let's start then. Smell. Olfaction. Where does that journey begin? Up in the nose somewhere.
Way up, yeah. In the upper part of your nasal cavity, there's a patch or tissue called the olfactory epithelium.
Olfactory epithelium.
That's where you find the olfactory receptor neurons. Those are the chemoreceptors for smell.
So how does it work? A molecule floats in. Then what?
Well, first, that airborne molecule has to travel way up there and actually dissolve in the layer of mucus covering the epithelium.
Dissolve first, like you said.
Right. Only then can it bind to the specific receptors on those olfactory neurons, and that binding triggers an electrical signal.
And that signal goes where? Straight to the brain.
Pretty much. It travels along cranial nerve on the olfactory nerve. And here's the really interesting part Mr. Hostler highlights.
Yeah.
It bypasses the thalamus. Unlike most other sensory information, it doesn't get relayed there first.
Skips the thalamus. So where does it go directly?
It goes directly into parts of the brain like the olfactory cortex and the temporal lobe, sure, but also straight into the limbic system.
The emotion and memory centers.
Right.
Like the amygdala and hippocampus.
Exactly. And also to the hypothalamus, which handles things like appetite, salivation, gut feelings.
Wow. So skipping that thalamus filter, that must be why smells can hit you so hard emotionally, right? Almost instantly.
That's the significance. That direct, unfiltered line means sense can trigger powerful emotional responses, memories, even physiological reactions like nausea or hunger, almost before you consciously process what the smell is.
Like smelling cookies and instantly feeling comforted, or spoiled milk and feeling sick.
Precisely. It's a very primitive, potent connection. Very different from, say, seeing something across the room.
Okay, that's really cool. So moving from the nose down to the mouth. Taste or gustation, where are those receptors?
Taste receptors are housed in taste buds. Most people think just the tongue, and yeah, mostly there, on those little bumps called papillae.
But not only the tongue.
Nope. You also have taste buds inside your cheeks, on the roof of your mouth, the soft palate, and even down in your throat, the pharynx.
Okay. And inside the taste buds are the gustatory cells, the chemoreceptors.
The gustatory receptor cells, yes. Another type of chemoreceptor. And just like smell, for you to taste something, the molecules from your food have to dissolve.
This time in saliva, I assume.
Exactly. Dissolve in saliva to make contact with those receptors.
And the signal path. Does taste also skip the thalamus?
No. Taste follows a more, let's say, conventional route. The signals are carried by actually 3 different cranial nerves depending on the location.
3 nerves. Which ones?
Cranial nerve 7, the facial nerve, handles the front 2/3 of your tongue. Cranial nerve AX, the glossopharyngeal, covers the back third. And cranial nerve X, the vagus nerve, picks up signals from the throat area.
Okay, 7, I, X, and X. And these signals?
These signals travel up, and they do pass through the thalamus. It acts as that relay station before sending the information onto the gustatory cortex.
Gustatory cortex, where is that located?
It's mainly in an area called the insula, kind of tucked away, and part of the frontal lobe, too.
Got it. Now, the notes mention 5 primary tastes we detect. Can you run through those?
Sure. The 5 established primary tastes are sweet, usually triggered by sugars, salty by sodium ions mainly, sour from acids, specifically hydrogen ions, bitter, often alkaloids like in coffee or some vegetables, and umami.
Umami, that's a savory one, right?
Exactly. Triggered by glutamate, an amino acid you find in things like meat, cheese, soy sauce.
Yeah.
And while receptors are tuned most strongly to one taste, there's definitely overlap. It's not perfectly siloed.
Right. Okay, so we have smell going directly to the cortex and limbic system, and taste going via the thalamus to the gustatory cortex. But as Mr. Hosser points out with that stuffy nose example, They clearly work together.
Oh, absolutely. That experience, food tasting bland when you can't smell, tells you everything. Flavor isn't just taste, it's taste plus smell.
So how does the brain combine them? Where does that integration happen?
This is the critical step for perceiving flavor. The olfactory signals coming from the olfactory cortex and those emotional limbic areas, and the taste signals relayed through the thalamus to the gustatory cortex. They converge.
They meet up somewhere.
They do, in a really important area in the frontal lobe called the orbitofrontal cortex.
Orbitofrontal cortex, so that's the flavor center.
You could think of it that way, yeah. It's the integration hub. It receives the what taste is this info and the what smell is this info, plus maybe texture and temperature too, and it binds them into that single unified perception we call flavor.
So without the smell input.
Without the smell input, the orbitofrontal cortex is only getting part of the picture. Your taste buds might still fire for sweet or salty, but you lose all the richness, the complexity, the identifying characteristics that smell provides. That's why food seems so dull.
And the notes mention loss of smell or taste can be clinically important, right? It's like something's wrong.
Definitely. Anosmia, loss of smell, or ageusia, loss of taste, can indicate injury, infection, even neurological issues. It's an important diagnostic clue sometimes.
Makes sense. So let's wrap with that challenge question from the lecture notes then. If you have a cold nose totally blocked, why does food seem tasteless even if your taste buds are working perfectly fine?
It comes right back to that integration in the orbitofrontal cortex. Your nose is blocked, so olfactory signals aren't getting through or are severely reduced.
No smell input reaching that integration center.
Exactly. So even though your tongue is sending perfectly good sweet or sour signals up through the thalamus, the orbitofrontal cortex can't combine them with the missing smell information. The result: you perceive basic taste, maybe, but not the full complex flavor. It feels bland and incomplete.
Because flavor absolutely depends on integrating both smell and taste.
That's the takeaway. Flavor is a synthesis.
Wow. Something to really think about next time you eat something delicious or next time you have a cold.
Indeed. Pay attention to how much smell contributes.
Okay, that brings us to the end of this deep dive on the chemical senses. Fascinating stuff. According to the notes, next time we're moving on to another special sense, the eye.
Ah, vision. Looking forward to exploring its structure and how we actually see.
Me too. Thanks for joining us for this dive.